Why the heck are you here? Don't ruin this important ceremony, leave.
Why is my husband, Jack, marrying another woman? Why am I the one being yelled at to leave? He is brazenly trying to hold a wedding with someone else. I stormed into the venue. However, as he tried to push the ceremony forward at all costs, I finally lost my temper. Fine, all right. In that case, let me liven up this event for you. I turned back to the door and called out to those waiting outside. My name is Emily. I'm a 32-year-old working mom. I've been married to Jack for 7 years. We've had our fair share of arguments, but thanks to our child, we managed to keep things going. Recently, we've been fighting less, and things feel calm. As I thought about it, I realized why. It's because we simply spend less time together.
I'm gonna be late again today with overtime. Plus, I'm out of town for 3 days starting tomorrow.
Again? You've been super busy lately.
Yeah, gotta hustle while the work's steady. You never know when it might dry up.
He said this with a yawn and headed off to work.
Daddy's gone again?
Our little preschooler, Amy, rubbed her eyes as she asked.
Yeah, Dad's just really busy.
But tomorrow's supposed to be our day together.
I couldn't help but think, is this really necessary, even on weekends? Sounds like a grind. But knowing he's doing it all for our family, I can't complain. It's tough times for hunting jobs, and you can't just switch to the perfect position whenever you want. I get it since I work, too.
Since I have a day off, why don't we pack a lunch and go to the zoo tomorrow?
Really? Yay.
Amy's face shifted from a look of sadness to a burst of joy, and I couldn't help but smile at her excitement. Despite how busy we are, missing out on witnessing these precious moments of our child's growth is a big loss. I thought I'd send a picture of her to Jack while he was away. That night, he came home from overtime, too tired, and went to bed early. The next morning, he'd already left by the time I got up. Feeling bad for him, I prepared lunch for our zoo trip. Amy was thrilled, and I managed to snap plenty of happy photos. I sent them to Jack, though they remained unread for quite a while, likely because he was busy at work. By midday, they were marked as read, but no reaction came, and there was no contact from him by nightfall. I was about to call him later, but I ended up forgetting when a friend called with happy news she was getting married.
That's amazing, congratulations.
I exclaimed, immediately agreeing to her invitation to the wedding. I was eager to share this news with Jack once he returned from his trip, but he brushed it off, saying,
I'm tired, tell me later.
I understood. He'd been working late and then away on a business trip. Apologizing, I watched as he closed himself off in his room. At some point, we stopped sharing a bedroom. I had no clue what he did alone in his room, and though everyone needs a little privacy, he was spending too much time in there. Working late every night, traveling on weekends, it was starting to seem suspicious. I thought of asking his company about his schedule, but kept holding back, wrestling with my doubts day by day. One day, he was surprisingly home for the weekend, and Amy was ecstatic.
Daddy, play with me.
She said, tugging on his arm.
Sorry, honey, Daddy's tired. I'm working even now, too.
Working? You're just playing on your phone.
I'm talking to work contacts.
Amy looked unconvinced. I could see why. He was lying on the sofa, scrolling through his phone with a contented hum. Would work messages really put him in such a good mood? My suspicion grew. Call it a woman's intuition, but I was starting to sense something wasn't right. I tried sneaking behind Jack to catch a glimpse of his phone screen. But he was one step ahead, keeping it at just the right angle so I couldn't see it. That only made things seem more suspicious. If there's nothing to hide, he wouldn't need to be so secretive. The way he was lying there, he must be straining his neck. Who scrolls his phone at that angle? It's strange, very strange. My suspicions were turning to conviction. So, I decided to test him a little.
Hey, about the date of my friend's wedding. It's on a weekend, so you'll have the day off, right? Could you watch Amy for me?
The wedding isn't until way down the line, so I figured he'd be able to adjust his work schedule. Plus, it's supposed to be his day off. However, his answer was exactly what I expected.
Are you kidding? You know I've got work even on weekends.
There's no way his schedule would already be filled that far in advance. He usually doesn't even mention weekend work until the last minute, so saying he can't plan around it just doesn't add up. He said decisively,
You're really something, aren't you? Pushing the kid on me on my one day off. Don't you think I deserve a break?
If it's his day off, shouldn't he spend time with his kid? He barely spends time with her on weekdays or weekends, and now he's complaining about it? Makes me wonder what he thinks being a parent even means. Doesn't he care about Amy at all? His cold attitude left not only me, but also Amy looking pretty down. And still, he was almost never home. Late night overtime every day. Leaving for work so early he'd be gone before Amy even woke up. Weekends, it was no surprise, work again. At this point, it's like he's neither a husband nor a father. He's practically some distant uncle who pops by occasionally. Maybe worse than that. I think it's time for a serious talk. In the end, I arranged for my parents to watch Amy on the day of my friend's wedding. I figured, why not? So I asked them if they'd keep her overnight. Amy stayed at their place a few times on her own before, so I knew she'd be fine. While she was away, I resolved to have a serious talk with Jack after my friend's wedding. Then came the day of the wedding. The sky was clear, the perfect weather for a wedding ceremony.
All right, I'm heading out.
With that, Jack left early in the morning. For someone supposedly going to work, he was dressed suspiciously casually. He said it's weekend work. But was that really true? I figured I'd find out everything once we talked that night. With that thought in mind, I finished getting ready, dropped Amy off at my parents' place, and headed to the venue.
Wow, what an impressive venue.
It was a large, elegant place with multiple halls, allowing several parties to take place simultaneously. At the main entrance, there was a board listing the names of the couples getting married that day. There were 4 weddings in total, which is unsurprising since it's the Saturday of June and falling on a holiday. At that moment, I noticed that one of the couple's groom's name was the same as my husband, Jack. It's not a common name, but it's not unheard of either. What a coincidence, I thought, glancing around. There was some time before my friend's ceremony, and I started to recognize a few familiar faces among the guests. As I approached one of them to say hello, my friend turned to me with a slightly shocked expression.
Hey, you're early. But wait, what's up? You look concerned.
Emily, about the groom.
What?
With a tense face and a trembling hand, my friend pointed in front of her. I looked over and saw that a previous ceremony was taking place in the chapel where my friend's wedding would soon be held. In a shower of flower petals stood a couple at the center of the crowd's cheers. I turned my attention towards them.
Wait, that face. Is that Jack?
From a little way off, I squinted to make out the person standing amid the celebrations and nearly shouted in shock. It seemed like he couldn't hear me over the crowd's cheers, but I certainly heard it loud and clear. Cheers erupted around the couple. Amidst it, someone called out,
Jack, you better make sure to keep your wife happy.
There was no mistake, the groom was my husband, Jack. Wait, what on earth is going on? We've been married for 7 years, haven't we? Did we get divorced at some point? No, we're not divorced, right? Did he submit divorce papers without telling me? Do I need to file to cancel this divorce? Today's a holiday. Do I wait until the offices open? No, there's no time to wait.
Isn't that your husband, Emily? I thought he looked familiar.
Okay, I need to calm down for a second.
Deep breaths, stay calm. Flying off the handle won't get us anywhere. I couldn't stay calm, no matter how hard I tried. How could I? Jack was getting married to some other woman.
Nope, I can't stay calm.
I was seconds away from tearing at my carefully styled hair in frustration. Just then, I felt a friend's reassuring hand on my shoulder. Her warmth finally helped me center myself. Nodding back to her supportive look, I took out my phone. Once the ceremony ended, there'd be the reception. This big venue also had a reception hall attached. Looking at the directory, I quickly found where Jack's reception was taking place. I stood before the doors, taking a deep breath. After a quick glance behind me, I reached for the doors. With a loud bang, I threw them open. In the stunned silence that followed, every eye in the room turned to focus on me. The guests in the reception hall turned to me with shocked expressions. After a quick glance over the attendees, I looked straight ahead. There they were, the newlyweds, just about to cut their cake. One of them, the groom, looked at me with the most stunned expression of all. Of course, he would, because he was my husband. Jack looked genuinely startled to see his wife standing there. I silently walked toward him. He was holding the knife, ready to cut the cake with his beautifully dressed bride. He stood there frozen in disbelief until I stood firmly right in front of him, and then he snapped out of it, scrambling in panic.
What are you doing here?
In his fluster, he dropped the knife. Oh dear, looks like the couple's first teamwork activity has been ruined. The bride, noticing his panic, spoke up.
Jack? Do you know this woman?
She was a beautiful young woman, likely younger than me, maybe in her early 20s. Jack, visibly rattled, tried to answer.
No, I don't know her. I don't know this woman at all.
But just now, you called her.
This joyful couple. My brain was struggling to process about the fact that one of them was actually Jack. What on earth are you babbling about? He was a complete mess, and even the bride looked at him with a puzzled expression. Then, in a desperate attempt, he blurted out.
Actually, she's my ex-girlfriend from ages ago.
Wait, an ex-girlfriend?
Yes, the girlfriend before I met you. We broke up because of personality differences, but she just couldn't let it go and kept clinging to me.
Oh, is that so?
Are you kidding me? I was utterly dumbfounded by his ridiculous excuse. Poor thing, she actually believed him. As I watched her pityingly, Jack glared at me with a furious expression.
Hey, we broke up ages ago, didn't we? You're ruining an important day, and I'm gonna sue you for this. For now, just get out of here.
The moment he yelled that at me, my last shred of patience snapped.
If anyone's suing.
What? What are you mumbling about? You're creeping me out? Just leave.
I'm the one who's gonna sue you.
Well,
He clearly hadn't expected me to snap. Caught off guard by my sudden fury, he froze in shock. However, I wasn't about to ease up.
If you're so desperate to have this ceremony, then fine. But it's going to be a little flat without your relatives here, don't you think?
I shouted and whipped around to face the entrance of the hall.
So I went ahead and invited your relatives.
what?
Just as he looked at me in confusion, the doors flew open again, and in walked.
What? My dad? And mom, too.
Yes, it was his parents. And more than that.
Wait, my brother? My sister? Ended up my aunts and uncles?
Yes, I had gathered the whole family.
Why is everyone here?
I called them.
Emily, you.
Oh, don't you me. Why should I be the one getting dirty looks here? Jack's face turned pale as he looked like he might lunge at me, but before he could, his father stepped in front of him.
Jack, you fool.
Ow.
Yikes, that punch to the head must have hurt. Without a shred of sympathy, I watched as his dad's fist came down on his head. You see, as soon as I saw him standing at the altar, I'd immediately called his parents. Naturally, they were shocked. And in no time, they'd gathered the whole family to come here.
Dad, wait please. Just listen to me.
I don't want to hear it. Sit down right there. It's lecture time.
Well, right here, but in front of.
Sit down.
Yes, sir.
His father's wrath was legendary. With a sliding motion, Jack grabbed the chair and sat down. As I watched him getting scolded, I let out a scoff and turned to the woman standing beside him. She was the bride, staring in stunned silence, unable to comprehend the situation. I felt sorry for her, but she deserved to know.
Nice to meet you. I'm Jack's wife.
What? Wife?
The bride, who had been staring at Jack in shock, jerked her head to look at me. Oh, she's pretty. Exactly his type. Meanwhile, I'm just average. If there's a gap between ideal and reality, I'm reality, and she's his ideal.
We got married 7 years ago and even have a child.
A child.
I showed her our wedding photos to prove it. His parents had kindly brought them along. I pulled up some pictures on my phone. There was a photo of him holding Amy when she was a baby. No recent pictures, though he's barely been around. The bride stared at the photos in shock. It was clear she hadn't known any of this.
So, how did you meet Jack?
Well, he was a regular at the cafe I work at.
It seemed she worked at a coffee shop. Jack had been a frequent visitor at the coffee shop where she worked.
He asked me if I'd go out with him.
So, it turns out he was the one who initiated it.
He told me that he'd stayed single this long because he was meant to meet me.
And there it was, Jack had been feeding her lies.
He came over after work and spent every weekend with me. He even took me on trips.
Oh, plenty of evidence piling up here. He'd been telling me he was working late, but was actually going to her place. Those absent weekends? Spent with her, not us.
Since I'm planning to sue him, would you be able to share that evidence with me?
Despite my bold request, she nodded willingly. Perfect, I'd secured proof, and now I had the upper hand. Not that there'd be any issues securing a divorce with this much evidence. Jack continued getting a fierce scolding from his father, who showed no mercy. He was bawling, but he didn't have any right to cry. I crouched down next to him and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. Looking up at me with tear-filled eyes, he looked utterly pathetic.
Emily, I'm sorry. I really wanted to marry her. She told me she'd leave if we couldn't get married.
Whatever. Just get the divorce papers ready.
I nodded dismissively, completely over it. That seemed to shock him more than anything else.
Divorce? No, I didn't mean for it to go that far.
After going as far as holding a wedding? Are you kidding? Do you think you get a say in this? Yes, you're what? I don't even want to say your name anymore. You'll be paying alimony for the affair, plus child support, all in one lump sum.
No, I don't want a divorce.
What the hell are you saying at this point?
Gosh.
What on the earth is this guy? At this stage, it's not even about being Jack, he's just utterly unredeemable as a person.
You left me and Amy behind, And now you don't want a divorce? We don't need someone who's never home. Just go ahead and marry someone else already.
No, that's not it. I.
Well,
As he kept crying, clinging to the idea of not getting divorced, I threw his pleas back at him with a cold tone. Just then, I heard a small voice. I looked over, and it was the bride, looking down, her expression hidden.
Sarah, no, you've got it all wrong. I really love you. It's just that she refused to divorce me, so I couldn't T.Beauty. I had to marry you no matter what.
Wait, didn't you just say you didn't want a divorce? Clearly, he was losing track of his own lies. In short, Jack didn't want to divorce me, but he still wanted to marry Sarah, the bride. I was about to call him an idiot when his father stepped in and did it for me, landing a punch on his son's head. Well done, Dad.
oh, that's enough.
The one who said that was Sarah, with her expression icy. Jack looked at her with tear-filled eyes, shocked. However, she fixed him with a cold, piercing stare and said,
I don't want to marry you.
What?
I'm calling off this wedding. Good thing it's before we signed anything. Actually, we couldn't sign anything anyway, since you're already married. Bigamy is illegal.
Wait, Sarah, I love you.
And what about your wife?
What? Oh, Emily, I don't love.
What?
He almost blurted out that he didn't love me, but as soon as I glared at him, he backtracked.
Of course I love her.
What's wrong with this guy?
Are you kidding me?
Oh no.
The shout didn't come from me. It was Sarah who had finally lost her patience.
I can't forgive you for pursuing me while you were married, for betraying your wife and child, and for claiming you love both of us or want to marry one while refusing to divorce the other. What do you think we are?
Sorry.
I don't need an apology. I'll be suing you.
What?
This is a clear case of fraud, marriage fraud.
No, wait, Sarah, please,
He clung to her wedding dress, his left hand gripping the fabric, and unbelievably, he stretched out his right hand toward me as well. I looked to my side, meeting Sarah's gaze. We exchanged a look, nodded in sync, and grabbed his outstretched hand. Jack's face broke into a relieved smile, thinking we'd forgiven him, but we only returned a smile before yanking him to his feet and shouting in unison,
What kind of idiot are you?
and promptly shoved him forward.
No.
With a ridiculous yell, he went flying straight into the wedding cake. Afterward, I apologized profusely to Sarah and the guests for disrupting the ceremony. Yet they all thanked me for revealing the truth. They were truly good people.
When he kept avoiding the topic of marriage, I felt something was wrong. But when I told him I'd leave if we couldn't marry, he finally agreed. What was he planning to do after the wedding, really?
My thoughts exactly.
And when he said he wouldn't invite his family because he wasn't close to them or wanted no friends from work there either. I thought that was strange, too.
Sarah added. Right? Having no one from his side was definitely a red flag. Sarah ended up settling things with Jack and received a nice settlement.
Well, it was a valuable life lesson. Next time, I'll be more careful and find someone decent.
She said with a bright smile, showing her resilience. I'm sure she'll have a wonderful new beginning. As for me, I felt bad for missing my friend's wedding and apologized profusely. Thankfully, she was sympathetic and said I went through a lot and our friendship is forever. That was a huge relief. Of course, I divorced Jack. He was adamant about not wanting a divorce, but when I told him a man who chases two rabbits catches neither, he finally slumped in defeat. Why was he so desperate to stay married? In the end, I realized it was probably because of my income. His savings were completely drained. I had been earning a decent salary, so I hadn't taken any money from him for household expenses. I thought it was fine since he was covering the mortgage, but it turns out he was spending every last penny on his girlfriend. All those business trips he'd taken were actually vacations with her, and naturally, his money ran out fast. Well, he won't get off easy with alimony and child support. There's no way he's paying in installments either. His parents kindly stepped in to pay up front. Under their watchful eye, he now works not only at his original job but also an evening shift to pay them back. Word of his despicable behavior spread at work, and he's facing cold stares and hostility. The female employees avoid him like the plague. Well, he can live with that for the rest of his days. For me and Amy, life hasn't changed much from post-divorce. My ex was rarely home, so naturally, things feel the same. With a father who only lazed around when he was there now out of the picture, Amy seems even livelier. Watching her grow up happy and healthy, I can't help but think to myself that I'll make sure she never gets tangled up with someone like her dad. And with that thought, I smiled.